I was standing in the middle of Lenox Square Mall in Atlanta, holding two shopping bags from Neiman Marcus, wearing my cream-colored ply Chanel suit, and my favorite Cartier bracelet when my daughter-in-law Crystal slapped me across the face so hard. My sunglasses flew off and clattered onto the marble floor. The sound echoed through the entire luxury wing, and for a moment, everything stopped. Shoppers froze. Mid-step sales associates looked up from their registers, security guards turned their heads, and in that suspended moment of shock, I saw Crystal's face twisted with rage, saw the crowd of people witnessing my humiliation, saw the security cameras recording everything. And what Crystal didn't know was that standing 15 feet away, in the doorway of Louis Vuitton, watching the whole thing, was Margaret Chen, the CEO of Chen Industries, the company that employed my son, and the woman who had the power to change all of our lives with a single decision. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story from. I want to know how far it's traveled, because what I'm about to tell you is a story about respect, about dignity, about what happens when someone mistakes your grace for weakness, and about how the universe has a way of delivering consequences in the most unexpected ways. And I need to tell this story not for revenge, but because too many people, especially women, especially mothers, are taught to accept disrespect from family members to keep the peace, and sometimes keeping the peace means losing yourself, and I refuse to do that. Any Marami name is Diane Harper. I'm 58 years old and I've worked hard for everything I have. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. The daughter of a housekeeper and a factory worker, I put myself through college working 3 jobs. I built a successful career as a hospital administrator. I raised my son, Marcus, as a single mother after his father left when Marcus was 2 years old, and now I'm semi-retired, living comfortably in a beautiful home in Buckhead, wearing the designer clothes I never could have afforded in my youth, traveling whenever I want, and enjoying the life I spent 40 years building. And I've earned every bit of it, not through luck or inheritance, but through sacrifice and determination and discipline. Marcus is my only child, and for most of his life, we were incredibly close. When it was just the two of us struggling to make ends meet, he used to tell me I was his hero, that he was going to grow up and take care of me the way I'd taken care of him. And he did grow up to be successful, got a degree in engineering, got a great job at Chen Industries, working his way up from junior engineer to senior project manager, bought a nice house, married a woman named Crystal. And I was so proud of him, so happy that he'd built a good life. But something changed when he married Crystal, or maybe Crystal revealed who she'd been all along. Either way, the woman my son married was not the woman I thought she was. He met Crystal 4 years ago when Marcus brought her to Sunday dinner at my house. She was 29 to his 32, pretty in a sharp, angular way, with ambitions that seemed to outweigh her abilities. She worked in marketing at a small firm, not the prestigious company she'd led me to believe when they first started dating. She carried a designer bag that I later learned was fake, and she had a way of talking about money and status that made me uncomfortable. Like those were the only things that mattered in life. But Marcus was happy, or seemed happy, and I wanted to support him, wanted to welcome this woman into our family. So I smiled and nodded and told myself that maybe I was being judgmental. Maybe I was being one of those mothers who thinks no woman is good enough for her son. But from the beginning, Crystal made little comments, little digs disguised as jokes or observations. "Oh, Diane, you're wearing that bracelet again. Don't you have anything else?" Or, "Marcus says you used to work such long hours when he was a kid. Must have been hard for him being a latchkey kid." Or, "I can't imagine buying a house this big for just one person. Seems kind of excessive." Always said with a smile, always said in a tone that could be interpreted as friendly but with an edge that let me know exactly what she meant: that I was flashy, that I'd been a neglectful mother, that I was selfish. And I'd take it, I'd laugh it off, because I didn't want to cause problems, didn't want Marcus to feel caught in the middle, didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law that everyone complains. A Booth comments got worse. After they got married, suddenly everything I did was wrong. The way I dressed was trying too hard. The gifts I bought for them were inappropriate. When I offered to help with their wedding costs, Crystal told Marcus I was trying to control everything with money, and when I backed off and didn't offer to help, she told people I was cheap and unsupportive. I couldn't win no matter what I did. It was wrong, and Marcus, who had always been my champion, who had always stood up for me, started making excuses for her. She's just stressed from wedding planning. Mom, or she didn't mean it that way. Mom, you're being too sensitive. And slowly, painfully, I watched my son choose his wife over his mother, which is what he should do in a healthy relationship. But this didn't feel healthy. This felt like Cristal was systematically cutting me out of Marcus's life thief. Final straw before the mall incident came 3 months ago when I wasn't invited to Marcus's birthday dinner. I found out about it through social media, saw photos of Marcus and Crystal at a nice restaurant with Crystal's family and several friends. And when I called Marcus to ask why I hadn't been invited, he said Crystal thought it would be better to keep it small, Mom, just immediate family. And I said, Marcus, I am immediate family. I'm your mother. And there was this long pause before he said, I know, Mom, but Crystal's family is here from out of town, and she wanted to focus on them. And you know how you and Crystal can be sometimes. It's just easier if we do separate celebrations. And I realized then that my son was choosing a lie over the truth. Because Crystal and I didn't have issues. Crystal had issues with me, and I had been accommodating and gracious and patient while she disrespected me over and over. I didn't make a scene, didn't guilt trip. Marcus didn't call Crystal and confront her. I just said, okay, honey, have a good time. And I hung up and I cried for about an hour, and then I dried my eyes and I decided that I was done trying to win Crystal's approval, done accepting disrespect, done making myself smaller to make her comfortable. I would still be polite, still be civil, but I was no longer going to bend over backward for someone who clearly had no respect for me, and I thought that was the end of it, thought. We'd just have a distant but cordial relationship going forward, but I underestimated how much Crystal resented me, how much my very existence seemed to bother her, which brings us to last Tuesday. I was at Lenox Square doing some shopping. It's one of my favorite activities, walking through the YN stores, treating myself to something nice, enjoying the life I'd worked so hard to build. I'd just left Neiman Marcus with a new pair of shoes and a handbag, and I was walking through the main corridor when I heard someone call my name, Diane. Diane Harper. I turned and there was Crystal walking toward me, and she did not look happy. Marcus was trailing behind her, looking uncomfortable, like he already knew something bad was about to happen. Crystal, I said with a polite smile, what a surprise, I didn't know you shopped here. It was a subtle dig. Crystal usually shopped at more affordable stores, and I knew it. We don't usually. Crystal said, and her voice was cold, but Marcus needed a suit for a work event, a very important work event that apparently you didn't think was important enough to ask about. I had no idea what she was talking about. I'm sorry, what work event? The Chen Industries Gala. Crystal said louder now. People were starting to look the biggest event of the year, where all the senior executives will be, and where Marcus might finally get the promotion he deserves, but you wouldn't know about that, would you? Because you don't actually care about Marcus's career. You're too busy spending his inheritance on designer bags. My mouth fell open, Crystal. That's not fair. I didn't know about the gala, and what inheritance? Everything I have, I earned myself. Marcus knows. That does he? Crystal shot back, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're spending money that should be helping us buy a bigger house or start a family, but instead, you're here, buying $1,000 handbags while we struggle. You're not struggling, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, trying not to cause a scene. Marcus has a good job, you both have good jobs, and Crystal, my money is my money. I earned it. I'm allowed to spend it however I want. That's so typical, Crystal said, and she was almost yelling now. We definitely had an audience. That's so selfish. You're exactly like Marcus said his whole childhood. Was you working all the time ignoring him, and now that he's an adult, you ignore his needs and his wife's needs because you're too busy playing rich lady? And something in me snapped. I worked all the time to provide for Marcus, I said, and my voice was shaking. I worked 3 jobs to make sure he had food and clothes and school supplies and opportunities. I sacrificed everything for him, and I will not stand here and be insulted by you. You won't stand here? Christo said with a cold laugh. You won't stand here? Who do you think you are? You're not special, Diane. You're not better than anyone else. It's just because you have money, you're just a bitter old woman who can't accept that. Marcus doesn't need you anymore, and before I could respond, before I could defend myself, before I could do anything, Crystal's hand shot out and she slapped me. The sound cracked through the air like a gunshot and my head snapped to the side. My sunglasses flew off the Cartier bracelet, caught the light as my hand instinctively went to my burning cheek, and for a moment, the entire mall was silent. I looked at Crystal and she looked shocked, like she couldn't believe what she'd just done. Marcus was standing behind her, his mouth open, his face pale, and all around us shoppers had stopped to stare. Some had their phones out, were recording this whole humiliating scene, and I felt tears spring to my eyes, not from pain, but from the sheer humiliation of being struck in public by my own daughter-in-law, Crystal. Marcus finally said, his voice weak, Crystal, what did you do? But before Crystal could respond, before I could say anything, a voice cut through the silence. Mrs. Harper, are you all right? I turned, and there was a woman in an elegant black suit. Her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her expression a mix of concern and carefully controlled anger, and I recognized her immediately. It was Margaret Chen, the CEO of Chen Industries, the woman who employed my son, the most powerful person in Marcus's professional life. Ms. Chen, I said, trying to compose myself, trying to pretend I hadn't just been publicly humiliated. I'm fine, thank you, just a family disagreement. But Margaret Chen wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at Crystal with an expression that made me glad I wasn't on the receiving end of it, a family disagreement. Margaret repeated slowly, is that what we're calling assault now? Because from where I was standing, I just watched you strike Mrs. Harper in the middle of a shopping mall. Crystal's face went white. Ms. Chen. I didn't. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Margaret said, her voice cutting, I'm Margaret Chen. I run the company that employs your husband, and I make it my business to know the character of the people who work for me, which is why I'm having a very serious conversation with myself, right? Now about whether Marcus Harper is the kind of person we want in a leadership position at Chen Industries. Ms. Chen, please. Marcus said, stepping forward. This is a personal matter. It doesn't have anything to do with work, doesn't it? Margaret asked, your wife just physically assaulted your mother in public. Mr. Harper, that speaks to judgment, to character, to the kind of home environment you're operating in, and I'm very interested in the character of my senior executives, especially the ones I'm considering promoting. The silence that followed was deafening. Crystal looked like she might faint. Marcus looked like he might be sick, and I just stood there trying to process what was happening. Mrs. Harper, Margaret said, turning back to me, I insist on walking you to your car, and I think we should call mall security to file a report about what just happened. That's not necessary. I started, but Margaret held up a hand. I insist, and as for you, she turned back to Crystal and Marcus, I suggest you both think very carefully about your behavior and your priorities, because the way I see it, you just created a very significant problem for yourselves. Margaret Chen took my arm gently and led me away from the crowd, away from Crystal's shocked face, away from Marcus's pleading eyes, and toward the mall security office, and I led her because I was too stunned to do anything else. Behind us, I could hear Crystal starting to cry, heard Marcus trying to calm her down, but I didn't look back, didn't stop, just kept walking with this powerful woman I barely knew, who had witnessed my most humiliating moment. The security office. Margaret insisted that I file a formal report. The security guards pulled up the footage from multiple cameras showing the entire encounter, showing Crystal yelling at me, showing her slapping me, showing the whole thing in clear, undeniable detail. I want copies of that footage, Margaret said to the security chief for Mrs. Harper's records, and then she turned to me. I'm so sorry you had to experience that, Mrs. Harper. No one deserves to be treated that way, especially not by family. You didn't have to do this, said, my voice still shaky. You didn't have to get involved. Yes, I did. Margaret said firmly, I have three core values in my company: integrity, respect, and dignity. And what your daughter-in-law did violated all three, and Mrs. Harper, between you and me, I've been watching Marcus for a while, considering him for a VP position, but this has given me serious pause because if this is how his family operates, if this is the judgment he shows in his personal life, then I have to question his judgment in professional matters. Please don't punish Marcus for Crystal's actions. I said, even though part of me was angry at Marcus for not defending me, for standing there silent while his wife attacked me. He's worked hard for you. He's good at his job. He may be good at his job, Margaret said, but good isn't enough for leadership positions. I need people with integrity, with backbone, with the ability to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. And from what I just witnessed, Mr. Harper doesn't have that. He stood there and let his wife assault his mother. He didn't defend you. He didn't stop her. He didn't do anything. And that tells me everything I need to know about his character. We exchanged contact information. Margaret made sure I had copies of the security footage, and then she walked me to my car in the parking garage. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Harper, she said, and if you need anything, if there's any retaliation or further problems, please contact me directly. I thanked her, drove home, and for the rest of the day, I sat in my house trying to process what had happened, trying to understand how things had gotten to this point, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do now. That evening, Marcus called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Mom, he said, and his voice was desperate. Mom, we need to talk. What happened today? It's bad. Crystal is hysterical. She's terrified she's going to be arrested, and Ms. Chen, she pulled me aside after she left you, and she told me that my promotion is on hold, that she needs to reconsider whether I'm the right fit for leadership. And Mom, I need this promotion. We need it. We've been counting on the salary increase, and now everything is falling apart, Marcus, I said, and I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Your wife slapped me in the middle of a shopping mall. She called me selfish and bitter. She said I was a bad mother. She physically assaulted me, and you stood there and said nothing. You didn't defend me. You didn't stop her. You just stood there. I was in shock, Mom. Marcus said it happened so fast, I didn't know what to do. You knew exactly what to do. Marcus, you chose not to do it. You chose to stand by and watch while your wife attacked me, and now you're calling not to apologize, not to check if I'm okay, but to complain about your promotion. That's not fair. Marcus protested, I'm worried about you too. Mom, but this promotion, it's everything we've been working toward, and if I don't get it because of today, then we're stuck in our current house, stuck with our current life, and Crystal, she's already upset, and this is just going to make everything worse. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you let her slap me, I said, and there was an edge to my voice. Now, maybe you should have thought about consequences before you stood silent while your wife disrespected and assaulted me. Marcus, I have been patient, I have been understanding, I have accepted Crystal's little digs and comments for years because I didn't want to cause problems for you. But this crosses a line. What do you want me to do? Kostas asked, and he sounded frustrated, like I was being unreasonable. Do you want me to divorce her? Kuyu. Want me to choose between you and my wife? I want you to have a backbone. I said, I want you to stand up for what's right. I want you to remember that I'm your mother, that I sacrificed everything to raise you, and that I deserve respect. And I want you to understand that Crystal's behavior today was unacceptable, and there need to be consequences. What kind of consequences? Marcus asked warily. Crystal needs to apologize. I said, a real apology, not just sorry you feel that way, but an acknowledgement of what she did and why it was wrong. And Marcus, you need to figure out why you're allowing your wife to treat your mother this way. You need to figure out what your priorities are, because from where I'm standing, it seems like you've forgotten where you came from. I haven't forgotten. Marcus said quietly, I don't know how to make everyone happy, how to keep the peace. Maybe you can't. I said, maybe sometimes you have to make a choice. Maybe sometimes keeping the peace means someone gets hurt, and Marcus, I'm tired of being the one who gets hurt. We talked for another few minutes, but the conversation went in circles. Marcus wanted me to understand Crystal's perspective, to see that she was stressed about money, about the future, about starting a family, and I tried to explain that none of those stresses justified assault, justified public humiliation, justified years of disrespect, but I could tell Marcus wasn't really hearing me, wasn't really understanding, and by the time we hung up, I felt exhausted and sad and angry all at once. The next morning, I received a call from Margaret Chen's office requesting a meeting. I agreed, though I wasn't sure what more there was to say. And 2 days later, I found myself in a corner office, overlooking downtown Atlanta, sitting across from one of the most powerful women in the city. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Harper," Margaret said, pouring us both tea from a delicate porcelain pot. "I wanted to follow up on what happened at the mall and also to talk to you about something else." "Of course," I said, accepting the tea. "How can I help you?" "First, I want you to know that I've made my decision about Marcus." Margaret said, "I'm not going to promote him right now. He's talented, but the incident at the mall revealed some character flaws that concern me. Inability to stand up for what's right, his passive acceptance of his wife's behavior, his lack of judgment. These aren't qualities I want in my leadership team." I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I just felt sad. "I'm sorry. I said I didn't want his career to suffer. His career isn't suffering because of you." Margaret corrected, "It's suffering because of his own choices and his wife's choices. Actions have consequences. And part of leadership is understanding that." "But that's not why I asked you here today, Mrs. Harper. I did some research on you after our encounter. I learned that you spent 38 years as a hospital administrator, that you have extensive experience in healthcare operations management and organizational leadership." "That's correct," I said, wondering where this was going. "I retired 2 years ago." "What if you unretired?" Margaret asked, leaning forward. "What if you came to work for Chen Industries? We're expanding into healthcare, technology, developing medical devices and hospital management systems, and we need someone who understands the healthcare industry from the inside, who knows how hospitals actually operate, who can bridge the gap between our engineers and our end users. Someone like you, Mrs. Harper." I stared at her. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you a position as Senior VP of Healthcare Strategy," Margaret said. "It's a newly created position, six-figure salary, full benefits, stock options, the works." And Mrs. Harper, "I'm going to be honest with you. Part of why I'm offering you this is because you're exceptionally qualified. But part of it is because I believe in karma, in consequences, in making sure that people who do the right thing are rewarded. And you, Mrs. Harper, walked away from that situation with dignity. You didn't retaliate. You didn't make a scene. You handled yourself with grace, and that's the kind of person I want on my team." "But Marcus," I started. "What about Marcus?" "We'll report to a different division." Margaret said, "Your paths won't cross professionally. You'll be peers. It's technically same level in the organization, but different departments. There won't be any conflict of interest. And Mrs. Harper, if I'm being completely honest, I think it might be good for your son to see his mother as a peer, as an executive, as someone with her own power and authority, rather than just as mom who he can take for granted." I thought about it, thought about going back to work, thought about having purpose and structure and challenges again, thought about being valued for my expertise, thought about the look on Crystal's face when she learned that I was now a senior executive at her husband's company at the same level as the promotion Marcus had been denied, and I smiled. "When do I start?" I asked. Margaret smiled back. "How about Monday? We'll get your office set up, get you oriented, get you started on some projects, and Mrs. Harper, welcome to Chen Industries. I think you're going to do great things here." I left that meeting feeling lighter than I had in years, feeling valued, feeling excited, feeling like maybe the universe did have a sense of justice after all. I called my best friend Donna and told her everything, told her about the slap, about Margaret Chen, about the job offer girl. Donna said, laughing, "This is better than any revenge you could have planned. Your daughter-in-law slaps you, and you end up with a six-figure job at her husband's company, working at the level he was supposed to be promoted to. I can't even imagine How Crystal's going to react when she finds out, do you think I'm being petty? I asked, taking the job just to prove a point. First of all, you're not taking the job just to prove a point. Donna said you're taking it because you're qualified, because you'll be good at it, because you deserve it. The fact that it also happens to prove a point is just a bonus. And honestly, Diane, you've spent years making yourself smaller to accommodate Crystal. Years accepting disrespect to keep the peace. Maybe it's time. Crystal learned that actions have consequences. Maybe it's time. Marcus learned that his mother isn't someone to be taken for granted. I spent the weekend preparing for my new position at Chen Industries, reviewing the company's healthcare initiatives, researching their recent acquisitions, and putting together a strategic vision for the division I'd be leading. It felt good to be using my brain again, to be preparing for something beyond shopping and lunch dates and trying to maintain a relationship with a son who seemed to have forgotten who I was. I didn't tell Marcus about the job. Figured he'd find out soon enough, and honestly, I wanted to focus on starting strong rather than managing his reaction to the news. Monday morning, I dressed in my best power suit navy blue Armani, paired with modest heels and the Cartier bracelet that had caught the light when Crystal slapped me. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not a victim, not someone to be pitied or dismissed, but a woman who had earned her place at the table. The Chen Industries building was all glass and steel, soaring up into the Atlanta sky like a monument to ambition and success. I walked through the lobby with my head high, checked in at security, and was escorted to the executive floor by Margaret, Chen's assistant, a sharp young woman named Jennifer. Ms. Chen is in a meeting, but she wanted me to get you settled, Jennifer said, leading me down a corridor lined with offices. This is yours. She opened a door to reveal a corner office with floor 2 ceiling windows overlooking the city. All right. Was a massive desk, comfortable seating areas, and my name already on the door. Diane Harper, Senior VP of Healthcare Strategy. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them back. Cried enough over the past few months, over Marcus's distance, over Crystal's disrespect, over feeling invisible and dismissed. These weren't tears of sadness, though. These were tears of vindication, of arrival, of finally being seen for who I really was. Your computer is all set up, Jennifer continued. Login credentials are in this envelope. You have a meeting with Ms. Chen at 10. And then she's arranged for you to meet the heads of the various engineering divisions this afternoon. Is there anything you need? No, I said, setting my bag down on the desk. This is perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. She smiled and left, closing the door behind her. I walked to the windows and looked out over Atlanta, the city where I'd built my career, raised my son, survived and thrived as a single mother. And now, I was here at the top again, proving that grace under pressure and dignity in the face of disrespect would always win in the end. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, we need to talk. Crystal wants to apologize. Can we come by your house tonight? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, I'm busy tonight, starting a new job. I'll let you know when I have time. I didn't mention where the new job was. Let him wonder. The morning was a whirlwind of meetings and introductions. Margaret Chen walked me through the company's healthcare portfolio, medical device monitoring systems, hospital resource management, software, telemedicine platforms, and I immediately saw dozens of ways to improve their approach, to make their products more aligned with what hospitals actually needed rather than what engineers thought they needed. You're going to be invaluable here, Margaret said after I'd spent 20 minutes explaining the gap between what Chen Industries was developing and what hospital administrators actually wanted. This is exactly the kind of insight we've been missing. At lunch, Margaret took me to the executive dining room, an elegant space on the top floor where the company's leadership ate. And that's where I saw him. Marcus was sitting at a table near the windows with several other engineers. And the moment I walked in with Margaret Chen, his face went white. I watched the realization hit him in stages. First, confusion. What was his mother doing here? then recognition as he saw me walking with his CEO, then shock as he processed what that meant, and finally, something that looked like fear. Margaret noticed. "Is that your son?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Would you like to sit elsewhere?" "No," I said. "We're fine here." Asterisk, asterisk, we sat at a table on the opposite side of the room, but I could feel Marcus's eyes on me the entire meal. I didn't look at him. I focused on my conversation with Margaret on meeting other executives, on establishing myself as a professional who belonged in this space. But as Margaret and I were leaving, Marcus caught up to us in the hallway. "Mom," he said, slightly out of breath. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "Working," I said simply. "Marcus, this is my son." "Marcus, you remember Ms. Chen?" "Course," Marcus stammered. "Ms. Chen, I didn't know my mother was. I didn't realize she was—" "Mrs. Harper is our new Senior VP of Healthcare Strategy," Margaret said smoothly. "We're very fortunate to have someone of her caliber and experience joining our leadership team. I believe you two are at the same level now, Mr. Harper, though in different divisions." I watched Marcus process that information. Same level. The level he'd been supposed to reach with his promotion. The promotion that had been put on hold because of what happened at the mall. "I see," Marcus said, and his voice was tight. "And that's— Congratulations, Mom." "Thank you, honey," I said, and I kept my tone warm but distant. "I need to get to my next meeting. We'll talk later." I walked away with Margaret, leaving Marcus standing in the hallway looking stunned. "That was cold," Margaret murmured, and there was approval in her voice. "That was necessary," I corrected. The rest of the day was productive. I met with engineers, asked questions, made suggestions, and began to understand the scope of what Chen Industries was trying to accomplish in the healthcare space. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, I was exhausted but energized in a way I hadn't felt in years. I was packing up my things. When there was a knock on my office door, I looked up to find Marcus standing there, and he looked miserable. "Can we talk?" he asked. I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. "Of course." "Come in." Marcus sat down, looking around my office with an expression I couldn't quite read. This is really nice, Mom. I'm happy for you. Are you?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I'm trying to be," Marcus admitted. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were interviewing here? Why didn't you tell me you were going back to work?" "Because I didn't need your permission, Marcus," I said. "And because, honestly, I wasn't sure you'd be supportive. You've made it pretty clear over the past few years that you think I should be smaller, quieter, less visible. That I should make myself convenient for you and Crystal rather than living my own life. That's not fair," Marcus protested. "Sit." I leaned back in my chair. "Marcus, when was the last time you asked about my life? About what I wanted? About my dreams or goals or plans? When was the last time you thought of me as anything other than Mom? The person who's supposed to be available whenever you need something but invisible the rest of the time." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't realize I was doing that." "I know you didn't," I said, and there was sadness in my voice. "That's part of the problem, honey. You didn't realize because you stopped seeing me as a whole person. I became just this role, this function. The mother who was supposed to accept whatever treatment you and Crystal dished out because mothers are supposed to sacrifice and accommodate and make themselves small." "Crystal feels terrible about what happened at the mall," Marcus said. "Does she? Or does she feel terrible about the consequences?" Marcus winced. "That's harsh, Mom. Is it?" "Marcus, your wife has been disrespecting me for years. Little comments, little digs, always pushing boundaries. And I let it go because I didn't want to cause problems. I let it go because I thought maybe I was being too sensitive. I let it go because I loved you and I wanted you to be happy. But then she crossed a line. She physically assaulted me in public and you stood there and did nothing." "I didn't know what to do," Marcus said, and his voice cracked. I was shocked. It happened so fast. "Marcus, you're a grown man. You're a senior engineer at a major corporation. You make decisions every day that affect millions of dollars and hundreds of people. Don't tell me you didn't know what to do. You knew. You chose not to do it. What was I supposed to do? Marcus asked, and now he sounded defensive. Was I supposed to grab Crystal? Yell at her in public. Make an even bigger scene. You were supposed to check on me, I said, and my voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. You were supposed to make sure I was okay. You were supposed to tell your wife that what she did was unacceptable. You were supposed to stand up for what was right, even if it was uncomfortable. Especially because it was uncomfortable. That's what integrity looks like, Marcus. And your inability to do that is why Ms. Chen put your promotion on hold. Marcus's face flushed. So this is revenge. You took this job to punish me. I took this job because I'm qualified for it, I said firmly. I took it because Margaret Chen recognized my value and my expertise. I took it because I wanted to work again, to use my brain again, to contribute to something meaningful again. The fact that it also happens to demonstrate that. I'm not just someone who can be dismissed or disrespected. That's not revenge, Marcus. That's consequence. Crystal is terrified she's going to be arrested, Marcus said, changing tactics. The mall security has her on camera. They filed a report. Mom, she could have a criminal record. It could ruin her career. Then she shouldn't have hit me, I said simply. Mom, please, Marcus begged. Please don't press charges. Please don't pursue this. Crystal made a mistake. She was stressed, she was upset, she wasn't thinking clearly. But she's sorry. She wants to apologize. Can't we just move past this? I looked at my son, this man I'd raised. This person I'd sacrificed everything for, and I felt a complex mix of love and disappointment and sadness. Marcus, do you understand what you're asking me? I said quietly. You're asking me to accept an apology from someone who has never shown me genuine respect. You're asking me to let go of consequences for someone who deliberately chose to humiliate and hurt me. You're asking me to make myself small again, to accommodate again, to sacrifice my dignity again so that you and Crystal don't have to deal with the results of her actions. I'm asking you to be the bigger person, Marcus said. I've been the bigger person for years. I replied. I've been patient and gracious and accommodating while your wife chipped away at my dignity piece by piece. And you know what I learned? Being the bigger person just means accepting mistreatment. It means teaching people that they can disrespect you without consequences. And I'm done with that, Marcus. I'm done making myself smaller so other people can feel bigger. So what happens now? Marcus asked, and he sounded defeated. Now I do my job, I said. I come to work, I contribute, I rebuild my career. And you and Crystal deal with the consequences of her choices. If the mall decides to press charges, that's between them and Crystal. If Ms. Chen decides you're not ready for a promotion, that's between you and her. And if you and I are going to have a relationship going forward, it's going to be one built on mutual respect. Not on me accepting whatever treatment you and your wife decide to dish out. You're really not going to help us. Marcus asked, and there was something like disbelief in his voice. Like he couldn't comprehend that I was actually setting boundaries. I'm helping you more than you realize, I said. I'm helping you learn that actions have consequences. I'm helping you understand that you can't treat people badly and expect them to just accept it. I'm helping Crystal understand that physical assault is never acceptable, no matter how stressed or upset you are. These are lessons you both should have learned a long time ago. Marcus stood up, his jaw tight. This isn't who you are, Mom. This isn't the mother I know. Asterisk, asterisk, you're right, I said. The mother you know was someone who sacrificed her own dignity to keep the peace. Someone who made herself invisible so you could shine. Someone who accepted disrespect because she didn't want to cause problems. But Marcus, that version of me, was dying. She was disappearing piece by piece every time Crystal took a shot at her. Every time you failed to defend her, every time I was expected to just smile and take it. So yes, this is a different version of me. This is the version who remembers her own worth. Marcus left without another word, and I sat at my desk feeling drained but also feeling clear. I'd said what needed to be said. I'd set the boundaries that needed to be set. And whatever happened next would happen. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Margaret Chen in the parking garage. "How was your first day?" She asked. "Intense," I admitted. "But good. Really good, actually." "I saw Marcus come to your office," Margaret said. "I hope that wasn't too uncomfortable." "It was necessary," I said. "He needed to understand that I'm not going to make this easy for him, that I'm not going to sweep what happened under the rug just to avoid awkwardness." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Good, you know. I've been thinking about what happened at the mall and I've realized something. The way Crystal spoke to you, the things she said, she accused you of spending Marcus's inheritance. She seems to think your money belongs to her and your son." "That seems to be the case." I said. "May I offer some unsolicited advice?" Margaret asked. "Of course." "Make sure your estate planning is ironclad," Margaret said. "Make sure Crystal and Marcus understand that your assets are yours to do with as you please. Because I've seen this scenario before, family members who feel entitled to money they didn't earn, who resent someone for living their own life instead of living for them. It rarely ends well." Asterisk. Asterisk, "I'll talk to my attorney," I said, making a mental note to do exactly that. "And Mrs. Harper, Diane," Margaret said, "I'm proud of you for standing your ground, for refusing to be diminished, for showing your son that you're more than just his mother, you're your own person with your own value. That's not an easy thing to do." I felt tears sting my eyes again. "Thank you, Margaret. That means more than you know." Over the next few weeks, I settled into my new role at Chen Industries. I loved the work. It was challenging and meaningful, and it reminded me of why I'd gone into healthcare administration in the first place. I was making a real difference, improving products that would help hospitals run more efficiently and help patients get better care. Marcus and I maintained a polite but distant relationship. We'd exchange occasional texts, but the warmth and closeness we'd once shared was gone, replaced by something cordial but careful. He never brought Crystal around me, and I didn't ask him to. Crystal never apologized. Not really. She sent a text 2 weeks after the mall incident. "I'm sorry things got out of hand. I hope we can move past this." Not "I'm sorry I hit you." Not "what I did was wrong. Things got out of hand," as if she'd been a passive observer to events rather than the person who'd caused them. I didn't respond to the text. The mall's security did file charges, apparently. I wasn't the first person Crystal had gotten physical with. And combined with the clear video evidence and witness statements, the DA decided to prosecute. Crystal ended up pleading guilty to simple assault and received probation, community service, and mandatory anger management counseling. Marcus blamed me for not stepping in to stop the prosecution, even though I'd told him repeatedly that it wasn't my decision to make. He seemed to think I had more control over the situation than I did. Or maybe he just needed someone to blame who wasn't his wife. 3 months into my new job, I was in a meeting with Margaret and several other executives when the topic of Marcus came up. "We need to make a decision about Mr. Harper," Margaret said. "His work is solid but not exceptional. His attitude has declined since the incident with his mother. And honestly, I'm not convinced he has the leadership qualities we need for the senior positions we're trying to fill." "What are you thinking?" asked David Wu, the coup. "I'm thinking we keep him where he is," Margaret said. "He's a good engineer. He does his job well. But he's not executive material, and I don't see that changing." I stayed quiet during this discussion. It felt wrong to weigh in on my son's career, even though technically there was no conflict of interest since we were in different divisions. But after the meeting, Margaret pulled me aside. "I want you to know that decision has nothing to do with you," she said. "It's based purely on Marcus's performance and potential. But I also want you to know that if you ever feel uncomfortable with the situation, if having your son work here becomes difficult, we can discuss options." "It's fine," I said. "Marcus is an adult. He's responsible for his own career. This is his consequence to manage, not mine." That weekend, I got a call from Crystal. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Diane," Crystal said, and her voice was tight. We need to talk. Hello, Crystal, I said neutrally. What can I do for you? You can stop sabotaging Marcus's career, Crystal snapped, and apparently the pretense of politeness was gone. We know you're the reason he didn't get promoted. We know you're poisoning Ms. Chen against him. And we know you took that job just to make us look bad. Crystal, I haven't said a word to Margaret Chen about Marcus's performance, I said, keeping my voice calm. His career is his own. Whatever is happening professionally is the result of his own work, not anything I've done or said. I don't believe you, Crystal said. Everything was fine until you showed up at that company. Marcus was on track for a promotion. He was doing great. And then you waltz in and suddenly everything falls apart. That's not a coincidence. Actually, Crystal, everything fell apart when you slapped me in the middle of a shopping mall, I corrected. That's when Ms. Chen started questioning Marcus's judgment. That's when his promotion got put on hold. I had nothing to do with that too, did. I made one mistake, Crystal said, and now she sounded like she was crying. One mistake when I was stressed and upset, and you're going to punish us for it forever. What kind of person does that? What kind of mother does that? The kind who has self-respect, I said. The kind who refuses to accept abuse. The kind who understands that actions have consequences. Crystal, you didn't just make one mistake. You spent years disrespecting me, belittling me, trying to push me out of my son's life. The slap was just the culmination of a long pattern of behavior. And I'm not punishing you, I'm simply refusing to protect you from the natural consequences of your choices. You're a bitter, vindictive old woman, Crystal spat. And you're going to end up alone because no one wants to be around someone as selfish as you. And yet I have friends, a fulfilling career, financial security, and my dignity, I replied. Can you say the same, Crystal? She hung up on me. I sat there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling an odd mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty had I been too harsh. Part of me felt sad was my relationship with my son permanently damaged. But mostly, I felt relieved. Relieved that I'd finally stood up for myself. Relieved that I was no longer accepting treatment that made me feel small and invisible. Relieved that I'd remembered my own worth. 6 months into my job at Chen Industries. The division one was leading had exceeded all expectations. We'd secured partnerships with 3 major hospital systems, developed a new approach to medical device integration, and created a feedback loop with healthcare administrators that was revolutionizing how the company developed products. Margaret called me into her office one afternoon. Diane, I want to talk to you about expanding your role, she said. You've done exceptional work, and I'm thinking about creating a new C-suite position, Chief Healthcare Officer. Someone who oversees all of our healthcare initiatives across divisions. And I want that person to be you. I stared at her, stunned. Margaret, I've only been here 6 months. And in 6 months, you've transformed how this company approaches healthcare, Margaret said. You've brought credibility, expertise, and insight that we desperately needed. You've proven yourself, Diane. This isn't charity or sympathy. This is recognition of your value. What would this mean for Marcus? I asked because I had to. Marcus would be several levels below you, Margaret said frankly. You'd be his boss's boss's boss. It might be awkward. He might resent it. But Diane, you can't live your life trying to make your adult son comfortable. You can't turn down opportunities you've earned because he might have feelings about it. She was right. I knew she was right. I'd like some time to think about it, I said. Of course, Margaret replied. Take the weekend. Let me know Monday. That weekend, I talked to Donna, to my attorney, to my financial advisor. I thought about what I wanted for the next chapter of my life. I thought about Marcus and whether accepting this promotion would damage our relationship beyond repair. But mostly, thought about that moment in the mall. The moment when Crystal's hand connected with my face. The moment when I felt humiliated and small and powerless. And I thought about how I never wanted to feel that way again, Monday morning. I walked into Margaret's office and accepted the position. The announcement went out company-wide that afternoon. I was now Chief Healthcare Officer of Chen Industries, reporting directly to the CEO, with a seat on the executive board and oversight of all healthcare initiatives. Marcus called me within an hour. Are you kidding me right now? He said, not even bothering with a greeting. Chief Healthcare Officer, do you have any idea how this makes me look? Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. Yes, I accepted a promotion. Because I earned it. You're doing this to humiliate me, Marcus said, his voice rising. You're taking these positions just to lord it over me. To show everyone that you're better than me, to make me look like a failure. Marcus, I'm taking these positions because I'm qualified for them and because I'm good at what I do, I said. Your ego is not my responsibility. Your career is not my responsibility. I am not going to make myself smaller so that you can feel bigger. You've changed, Marcus said, and he sounded disgusted. You're not the mother I grew up with. You're right, I said. The mother you grew up with sacrificed everything for you, including her own identity and dignity. She made herself invisible so you could shine. She accepted disrespect so you wouldn't be uncomfortable. But Marcus, that version of me was unsustainable. She was dying inside. And when your wife slapped me in that mall, when you stood there and did nothing, I realized that I had to choose between your comfort and my self-respect. And I chose me. So this is how it's going to be. Marcus asked, you're going to keep climbing the ladder at my company, keep taking opportunities that should be mine, keep rubbing my face in your success.
This is how it's going to be. I'm going to live my life, I said. I'm going to pursue opportunities that interest me. I'm going to use the skills and experience I've spent 40 years developing. I'm going to respect myself even if that makes you uncomfortable. And Marcus, if you can't be happy for your mother's success, if you can't support me the way I've always supported you, if you're going to resent me for having achievements of my own, then maybe we need to reevaluate what kind of relationship we can have. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Crystal says I need to choose, Marcus finally said, and his voice was quiet. She says I need to choose between her and you. She says she can't be in a family where she's treated like the villain, where she's blamed for everything, where she has to watch you succeed while we struggle. My heart sank. And what did you say? Another long pause. I said I'd think about it. Marcus, I said gently, I'm not asking you to choose. I've never asked you to choose. I've only asked for respect, for dignity, for basic decency. If Crystal can't provide those things, if she sees setting boundaries and demanding respect as making her the villain, then that's something she needs to work through with her therapist. She's my wife, Mom, Marcus said. I made a commitment to her. I know you did, I said. And I would never ask you to break that commitment. But Marcus, a commitment to your wife doesn't mean abandoning your mother. It doesn't mean accepting abuse on her behalf. It doesn't mean choosing to stand by while she disrespects and assaults the woman who raised you. I don't know how to make this right, Marcus said, and he sounded defeated. I don't know how to make everyone happy. Maybe you can't, I said softly. Maybe sometimes there are no easy answers. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I love you. I will always love you. You're my son, and nothing will ever change that. But I won't accept disrespect, not anymore. Not from Crystal, and frankly, not from you either. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be one built on mutual respect. And if you can't provide that, if Crystal won't allow that, then maybe we need some distance for a while. Are you saying you're cutting me off? Marcus asked, and he sounded panicked. I'm saying I'm setting boundaries, I corrected. I'm saying that I deserve to be treated with respect. And if that's not something you and Crystal can do, then yes, we need some space. Not because I don't love you, but because I love myself too. We ended the call without resolution, without clarity, without any sense of what would happen next. And over the following months, Marcus and I grew further apart. We'd exchange texts on birthdays and holidays, brief impersonal messages that said nothing of substance. I'd hear through mutual acquaintances that he and Crystal were struggling, financially, emotionally, in their marriage. Part of me ached to reach out, to help, to fix things the way I'd always fixed things when Marcus was in trouble. But I didn't. Because helping him would mean making myself small again. It would mean accepting that my role was to sacrifice for him while receiving nothing in return. It would mean teaching him that he could treat me badly, and I'd always be there to bail him out. Instead, I focused on my work, on my friendships, on building a life that was full and meaningful and mine. I traveled to conferences, developed innovative programs, became known in the healthcare technology industry as someone who understood how to bridge the gap between technology and practical healthcare needs. I was happy, genuinely, authentically happy in a way I hadn't been in years. And then, almost a year after the mall incident, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Harper?" A woman's voice said. "This is Dr. Susan Martinez from Piedmont Hospital. Your son Marcus was brought into the emergency room about an hour ago. There's been an accident." My heart stopped. "Is he okay? What happened?" "He's stable," Dr. Martinez said. "He was in a car accident. Another driver ran a red light and hit his vehicle on the driver's side. He has some broken bones, a concussion, and we're keeping him for observation, but he's going to be fine." "I'll be right there," I said, already grabbing my keys. "Mrs. Harper," Dr. Martinez said, "before you come, I should tell you that his wife is already here." She said, "Well, she said she wasn't sure you'd want to be contacted. But you're listed as his emergency contact, so hospital policy required that we call you." "I'm on my way," I said firmly. The drive to the hospital felt like it took forever. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the hurt and distance, Marcus was still my son. He was still the little boy I'd raised, the baby I'd held, the person I'd loved more than anyone else in the world. When I got to the hospital, Crystal was in the waiting room. She looked up when she saw me, and her expression was cold. "He doesn't want to see you," she said before I could speak. "I'm his mother," I replied. "I'm going to see him." "He doesn't want to see you," Crystal repeated, standing up to block my path. "He's upset and in pain, and he doesn't need you coming in here acting like you care when you've spent the last year making our lives miserable." "I've been living my own life," I corrected. "That's not the same as making yours miserable." "You took opportunities that should have been his," Crystal hissed, keeping her voice low so as not to disturb other people in the waiting room. "You humiliated him at his own company. You turned his boss against him. You pressed charges against me. You've done everything you could to destroy us." "I did my job well," I said. "I earned my promotions based on my own merit. And Crystal, you assaulted me. The charges weren't revenge, they were justice." "Mrs. Harper?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Harper is asking for you." Crystal's face went white then red. "He's confused from the concussion," she said quickly. "He doesn't know what he's saying." "He seemed quite clear to me," the nurse said. "Mrs. Harper, if you'll follow me?" I walked past Crystal, feeling her glare burning into my back. Marcus was in a hospital bed, his left arm in a cast, bandages on his head, bruises blooming on his face. But when he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I rushed to his bedside, taking his good hand in both of mine. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. I'm here. You're going to be fine." "No," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. "Not about the accident. About everything. About Crystal, about the mall, about this whole past year. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have defended you. I should have stood up for you. I should have been a better son." I felt my own tears starting to fall. "Marcus, we don't have to talk about this now. You need to rest." "We do have to talk about it," Marcus insisted, wincing as he tried to sit up. "When that car hit me, when I felt the impact and thought I might die, all I could think about was you. About how I'd treated you. About how I let Crystal treat you. About how I'd lost my mother because I was too weak to stand up to my wife. Mom, I've been miserable. Crystal has been miserable. Our marriage is falling apart. And it's because we built it on the wrong foundation, on entitlement and resentment instead of respect and gratitude." "Marcus," I said gently, squeezing his hand, "you're going through something traumatic right now. You don't have to make any big decisions or declarations while you're in a hospital bed." "But I do," Marcus said, "because I almost died without telling you how proud I am of you, how amazing I think you are, how much I admire what you've built at Chin Industries, how you were right about everything, about boundaries, about respect, about refusing to be treated badly. Mom, you were right. I was wrong. And I'm so sorry. I wiped tears from my face with my free hand, trying to keep my composure. Thank you for saying that, honey. That means more to me than you know. Crystal's going to be upset, Marcus said. She's going to want me to maintain our united front, to keep blaming you, to keep being angry. But I can't do it anymore, Mom. I can't keep pretending that you did something wrong when all you did was refuse to be disrespected. I can't keep choosing her feelings over your dignity. What are you saying? I asked quietly. I'm saying I want my mother back, Marcus said. I'm saying I want to rebuild our relationship on your terms. I'm saying that I'm going to start making choices based on what's right instead of what's comfortable. And if Crystal can't accept that, if she can't respect you and treat you with basic decency, then... He trailed off, but the implication was clear. Marcus, I don't want to be responsible for problems in your marriage, I said. You're not responsible, Marcus said firmly. Crystal is responsible. I'm responsible. You just refuse to accept abuse, and that's not something you should apologize for. We talked for another 20 minutes before Marcus started to get tired. I promised I'd come back the next day, promised we'd figure things out together, promised that no matter what happened, I loved him. As I was leaving his room, I ran into Crystal in the hallway. What did you say to him? She demanded. I told him I loved him, I said simply. He's talking about couples counseling now, Crystal said, her voice rising. About how we need to work on our marriage, about how we've been unfair to you. You did this. You turned him against me. No, Crystal, I said, and I was too tired to be gentle anymore. You did this. You spent years disrespecting me. You slapped me in public. You tried to push me out of my son's life. And Marcus finally realized that he can't build a happy marriage on a foundation of disrespecting his mother. That's not my fault. That's the natural consequence of your choices. I'll never forgive you for this, Crystal spat. That's your choice, I said. But Crystal, if you want your marriage to survive, if you want Marcus to respect you, you need to start showing respect to the people he loves. You need to work on your anger, your entitlement, your need to make yourself feel better by making other people feel worse. And until you do that, until you actually deal with your issues, you're going to keep destroying your own happiness and blaming everyone else for it. I walked away before she could respond, before this could turn into another scene, before I said something I might regret. Over the following weeks, Marcus and I slowly began rebuilding our relationship. He and Crystal did start couples counseling, though from what Marcus told me, it wasn't going well. Crystal resented having to examine her own behavior, resented the counselor's suggestions that she might need individual therapy for her anger issues, resented the implication that she bore any responsibility for the problems in their marriage. Marcus and I met for coffee once a week, neutral territory where we could talk without Crystal hovering. He apologized repeatedly for how he'd acted, for choosing comfort over integrity, for allowing his wife to mistreat his mother. I think I was threatened by you, Marcus admitted during one of our coffee dates. By your independence, your success, the fact that you didn't need me anymore. When I was growing up, you needed me. Or at least, I felt needed. I felt important because I was the reason you were working so hard. The reason you were sacrificing. But then I grew up and you didn't need me anymore. And instead of being happy for you, instead of being proud that you could finally live for yourself, I felt irrelevant. Oh, Marcus, I said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. You'll never be irrelevant to me. You're my son. But you're right that I don't need you the way I used to. I don't need you to give my life meaning. I don't need you to justify my existence. And that's healthy, baby. That's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to grow up and build your own life, and I was supposed to build mine. I see that now, Marcus said. And Mom, watching you at Chin Industries, seeing you in your element, being so good at what you do, I'm proud of you. I should have said that a year ago. I should have celebrated your success instead of resenting it. Thank you, I said. That means everything to me. As the months went on, I continued to thrive at Chin Industries. The healthcare division I'd built became the company's fastest-growing segment, earning recognition in the industry and attracting top talent. Margaret Chen and I became genuine friends, not just colleagues. bonding over our shared experiences as women who'd had to work twice as hard to earn half as much respect as their male counterparts. Marcus and Crystal's marriage continued to struggle. Crystal refused to accept responsibility for her behavior, refused to show me any respect, and ultimately, refused to do the work necessary to save her marriage. A year and a half after the mall incident, Marcus filed for divorce. He called me the night he served her the papers, his voice shaking. "Mom, I did it. I finally did it. I chose what was right over what was comfortable. How are you feeling?" I asked. "Scared," Marcus admitted. "Relieved, Sut. But also free. Like I can finally breathe again." "I'm proud of you," I said. "I know this wasn't easy." "She's going to blame you," Marcus warned. "She's going to tell everyone that you destroyed our marriage." "Let her," I said. "The people who matter know the truth. And Marcus, your marriage didn't end because of me. It ended because it was built on the wrong foundation. But now you have a chance to build something better. A life based on integrity and respect and authentic connection." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Mom, I know I can't undo the past year and a half. I can't take back the things I said or didn't say. But I want you to know that I'm committed to being a better son. To showing up for you the way you've always shown up for me. To making you proud." "You already make me proud," I said, and I meant it. Now, 2 years after that day in Lenox Square Mall, I'm sitting in my corner office at Chin Industries, looking out over the city where I built my life. Marcus and I have dinner together every week. We talk about our work, our lives, our plans for the future. He's dating someone new, a kind, confident woman named Sarah who treats me with respect and warmth. Crystal moved back to her hometown, still angry, still insisting that she was the victim, still refusing to take any responsibility for her actions. I feel sorry for her, honestly. She's trapped in a prison of her own making, unable to see that her own behavior is the source of her unhappiness. As for me, I'm happier than I've ever been. I have meaningful work that makes a difference. I have genuine friendships with people who value and respect me. I have a relationship with my son that's healthier and more authentic than it's ever been, built on mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. And I have myself, my dignity, my integrity, my sense of worth, intact. People sometimes ask me if I regret how things played out, if I wish I'd handled things differently. And the honest answer is no, because that day in the mall, as humiliating and painful as it was, became a turning point. It became the moment I decided I mattered. The moment I decided my dignity was non-negotiable. The moment I decided to stop making myself small to make other people comfortable. Would things have been easier if I'd just accepted Crystal's behavior? If I'd swallowed my pride? If I'd continued to prioritize Marcus's comfort over my own self-respect? Maybe. But I wouldn't have been happy. I wouldn't have been whole. And I would have taught my son that mistreating people has no consequences, that women should accept disrespect for the sake of family peace, that dignity is something you can sacrifice in the name of keeping things comfortable. I refused to teach those lessons. And yes, there were consequences, painful ones. But there were also rewards. A career that fulfills me, a son who respects me, a life that's mine. And that bracelet that caught the light when Crystal slapped me, I still wear it. Not as a reminder of that awful day, but as a reminder of what came after. As a reminder that grace under pressure, that refusing to be diminished, that maintaining your dignity even when others try to strip it away. These things matter. These things have power. Margaret Chin was right when she told me that day that I'd handled myself with grace. And that grace wasn't about being passive or accepting mistreatment. It was about knowing my worth, refusing to compromise my dignity, and trusting that the universe would reward integrity over expedience. So if you're watching this video, if you're in a situation where someone is disrespecting you, whether it's a daughter-in-law, a son, a spouse, a friend, anyone, I want you to know, you don't have to accept it. You don't have to make yourself small. You don't have to sacrifice your dignity for someone else's comfort. Set boundaries. Demand respect. Walk away from people who refuse to treat you with basic human decency. Yes, there will be consequences. People will be upset. They'll accuse you of being selfish or vindictive or cold. They'll try to make you feel guilty for refusing to accept mistreatment. But you'll also discover something beautiful. You'll discover that you're stronger than you thought, that you can survive people being angry with you, that your worth isn't dependent on other people's approval, that a life built on self-respect is infinitely better than a life built on accommodating people who don't value you. 2 years ago, I was standing in a mall with tears in my eyes and fingerprints on my face, feeling humiliated and powerless. Today, I'm the chief healthcare officer of a major corporation, with a fulfilling career and a healthy relationship with my son and a life that's entirely my own. The universe has a way of delivering justice, of rewarding dignity, of proving that you can't build lasting happiness on a foundation of disrespect. Crystal wanted to put me in my place. She wanted to diminish me, to make me small, to teach me that I existed to serve her needs and accept whatever treatment she decided to dish out. Instead, she taught me something far more valuable. She taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, that my worth isn't determined by other people's opinions, and that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are so you can decide exactly who you want to be. I chose dignity. I chose self-respect. I chose me, and I've never been happier. So thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who's struggling with similar issues. I hope it gives someone the courage to set boundaries, to demand respect, to refuse to be diminished. Remember, you matter. Your dignity matters. Your happiness matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even family.